So, let's see if I can do this quickly. When I start writing, it's the 8th of September, 12:30. Some theist by the name of Jesus Saves, note bonus points for guessing their religion, sent me a video on the kalam cosmological argument. This video was sent against a comment of mine in which I explained that if DNA was put together, it's put together horribly incompetently. And that while the comparison to the layman is always to compare DNA quote-unquote code to computer code, the horribly inefficient way DNA works is pretty good evidence that it wasn't put together by an intelligent being. Of course, the kalam has nothing to do with anything that I said. But it's such a terrible argument for any god that I'll still address it. Also, the twat said that they'll consider my arguments, so let's get this out quickly so they don't have to wait too long.
Does God exist? Or is the material universe all that is, or ever was, or ever will be?
Black and white fallacy. Man, not starting good, are we? Capital G God or materialism aren't the only options. There are many other major and minor religions. Spirituality could be true without the existence of a god. And of course, all the options I haven't considered and don't even know about. Let's hope that this is irrelevant to the rest of the discussion, because if this is the basis on which the video builds, it's built on a fallacy and thus to be discarded.
One approach to answering this question is the cosmological argument. It goes like this: whatever begins to exist has a cause.
So let's talk about part of why I'm doing this video. I've talked about the kalam argument before in my video 36 questions for atheists answered without a sweat. However, in that I don't touch on it as completely as I would like to. Let's begin with pointing out that this statement, whatever begins to exist has a cause, lacks meaning. What does it mean to exist? When does a car begin to exist? When it's fully put together? When most of it is put together? If so, what percentage? When all individual parts have the shape needed to be put together? If so, what do we call a part? Does it have a minimal size? What about the parts of parts? What do we call the shape needed? A bolt could be a part in the right shape, but so could the steel the bolt is made out of, as it's a proper fusion of iron and carbon. Are the atoms not the parts the car is made out of? The atoms are roughly as old as the Earth, perhaps changing but never appearing or disappearing. And atoms also have parts. Did the car exist the moment all of its atoms existed? If so, in what stage must the atoms exist? Or did the car exist once the plans of it were made? But when is a plan made? Does it have to be written out or merely all parts thought up? Or is the idea of the car enough? And when does it count as an idea? And if it's the plan that must exist for the thing to exist, an accident can't exist, for an accident by definition isn't planned. Basically what I'm saying is, whatever begins to exist needs to be defined before it's meaningful.
The universe began to exist?
Same problem with what it means to begin to exist as in assertion 1.
Therefore, the universe has a cause.
So, how is this an argument for God? The universe has a cause. Ends with the universe having a cause. This cause can be completely material. So this argument doesn't even help you fight materialism. This is why I think this is one of the worst arguments there is. Its assertions are meaningless in their usual form, they are unsupported, and it doesn't even argue for what the people that use it want to use it for.
Is the first premise true? Let's consider. Believing that something can pop into existence without a cause is more of a stretch than believing in magic.
No. It's not more of a stretch to believe things can pop into existence than it's to believe in magic. This is because we can see things pop in and out of existence. Yeah, obviously not a bunny, but to claim that is what anyone says would be a horrible strawman fallacy. Virtual particles are a weird thing to look into, as you'll be delving into quantum physics. These are particles that pop in and out of existence. To quote the English Wikipedia on quantum fluctuations which happen through virtual particles, to just get an idea for how hard to comprehend this is. Quantum fluctuations appear as virtual particles, which are always created in particle-antiparticle pairs. Since they are created spontaneously without a source of energy, vacuum fluctuations and vertical particles violate conservation of energy. However, this is allowed because they annihilate each other within the time limit set by the uncertainty principle and so are not observable. If I'm getting this right, it's basically a case of two particles popping into existence but disappearing before an anthropomorphized version of the universe can react to the violation. So yeah, it's fucking weird, and there's no way the average layperson like me will ever really understand it. These are clearly particles that pop in and out of existence. So if virtual particles exist, the statement "whatever begins to exist has a cause" is false. If virtual particles don't exist, I would love to know what virtual particles do.
At least with magic you've got a hat and a magician. And if something can come into being from nothing, then why don't we see this happening all the time?
We as humanity do see it happen all the time. It's just that the layperson doesn't have the technology to observe it. But, if I understand it correctly, a lot of physical forces work with and/or rely on virtual particles. We don't see the particles, but we see their effects every day. I'll just display the easy explanation of Wikipedia for some of those. Do I understand how this works? Obviously not. Yet, if we as humanity have discovered that these forces work through virtual particles, we can say that, yes, we do see things pop in and out of existence all the time through their effects.
No, everyday experience and scientific evidence confirm our first premise.
Everyday experience is a terrible measuring stick. And I've just pointed to a field of study which clearly disproves your first premise, unless you want to go with a definition of existence that excludes virtual particles. If you want to do that, I would need to see your definition of existence and your justification for that definition.
If something begins to exist, it must have a cause.
Except that all particles that make up that chicken already existed before that chicken did.
But what about our second premise? Did the universe begin, or has it always existed?
As odd as it may sound, those two statements are not mutually exclusive. If the universe includes spacetime, if it doesn't, I have no clue what you're talking about with the universe, and we use a definition of existence where something has a position in spacetime, this would mean that everything that exists has a time and a space in which it exists. Then the universe has always existed by definition. But at the same time, it could have begun. Let's compare it to a ruler. When we measure something against a ruler, it always has a position. It could be at 10, 20, 2.5. The ruler also always is at a position. Each spot on the ruler has a position on the ruler. Yet the ruler begins at 0. There is no ruler before the 0. The entirety of the ruler exists on the ruler. Now let the ruler not be 1, but 4-dimensional. And we turned the ruler into the universe with spacetime as its 4 dimensions. The universe always has a position in spacetime. Yet there was a first moment. What was there before the universe would be like asking what position is on the ruler before 0. Time began at the start of the universe. And the universe existed at every point in spacetime. The universe began, and the universe always existed. Welcome to the complications of working with spacetime. Shit gets fucky. Don't understand it? Fine. Not sure I even do. But this is what physics deals with. If you want to use an argument based on physics, this is what you have to contend with.
Atheists have typically said that the universe has been here forever.
Yes, the static universe was a common position for a long time. Then we found evidence that this wasn't the case. And we changed our position. That's what everyone should do. Change your position on new evidence.
The universe is just there, and that's all. First, let's consider the second law of thermodynamics.
Oh goody, thermodynamics. Those things creationists don't understand yet think they can use against evolution. How long are they going to argue against outdated positions? I haven't heard of anyone who argues for a static universe. Is this just going to be, haha, your side was wrong once? If so, yeah, it was. It still is. There's a lot we didn't know then. There's a lot we don't know now. There's a lot we probably will never know. And in all times, we did think that we knew some stuff we actually didn't. Because humans are often wrong, we often change our minds. At least when we're actually interested in what is real.
It tells us the universe is slowly running out of usable energy. And that's the point. If the universe had been here forever, it would have run out of usable energy by now. The second law points us to a universe that has a definite beginning. This is further confirmed by a series of remarkable scientific discoveries.
Yes, a series of scientific discoveries that made us change our models on the universe. So why are you dragging this out? For who are you dragging this out?
In 1915, Albert Einstein presented his general theory of relativity. This allowed us, for the first time, to talk meaningfully about the past history of the universe. Next, Alexander Friedmann and George Lemaitre, each working with Einstein's equations, predicted that the universe is expanding. Then in 1929, Edwin Hubble measured the red shift in light from distant galaxies. This empirical evidence confirmed not only that the universe is expanding, but that it sprang into being from a single point in the finite past. It was a monumental discovery, almost beyond comprehension.
Almost beyond comprehension? Nah mate, this is full on beyond comprehension. At least when you think about it for a bit of time. Everything came from that point. This includes space-time. The initial singularity didn't have dimensions. In one dimension, you have a width. From this point you exist up to this point. In two dimension, you have a width and a height. At each point in which you have a width, you have a height. In three dimension, you have width, height, and depth. At each point of width, you have a height. And at each point of height for which you have a width, you also have a depth. In four dimensions, you have width, height, depth, and time. At each point of time where you exist, you have a width. For each point in width in the time you exist, you have a height. For each point of height For each point of width, for each point you have time, you have a depth. Sounds complicated, right? It kind of is, but we can follow it well enough. But this initial point was zero-dimensional. No width, no height, no depth, no time. One point in which all energy of existence existed. Not at the same time, for there was no time to exist in. I can write this. I can understand the concepts. I don't comprehend it. And I highly doubt you do.
However, not everyone is fond of a finite universe, so it wasn't long before alternative models popped into existence. But one by one, these models failed to stand the test of time.
Yes, welcome to science. Ideas are formulated and tested. That's how we learn about reality. We create a hypothesis. We figure out how to falsify the hypothesis. We try to falsify the hypothesis. If we falsify the hypothesis, we update the hypothesis to get the model closer to reality. To claim the alternative hypothesis were a bad thing is to not understand science.
More recently, 3 leading cosmologists, Arvind Borde, Alan Guth and Alexander Vilenkin, proved that any universe which has on average been expanding throughout its history cannot be eternal in the past but must have an absolute beginning.
Great. So you got to the point that the Big Bang is a thing. Congratulations for catching up. Feel free to start arguing that the universe began to exist at the Big Bang. Oh yeah, that gets fucky too.
This even applies to the multiverse, if there is such a thing. This means that scientists can no longer hide behind a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning.
Well, since I don't know of any scientist that tries to hide from facts, since finding and understanding facts is kind of their job, this whole thing said nothing.
Any adequate model must have a beginning, just like the standard model.
Great. So can we get to the part where you explain how the universe started to exist? Because the energy doesn't seem to have an origin. It merely expanded with space-time, forming pockets of order to better increase chaos as dictated by the second law of thermodynamics.
It's quite plausible then that both premises of the argument are true.
Oh. No argument for anything other than reconfiguration of energy as the initial singularity started expanding. No reason to think the energy had to come from somewhere. Hell, even the wording is still incorrect. The universe had a first moment would be accurate. The universe had a start is sloppy, but I would accept it as correct enough. The universe began to exist. To me, at least, implies a before. A before that definitionally doesn't exist, as time didn't exist before the first moment of the universe, as time is part of the universe.
This means that the conclusion is also true. The universe has a cause.
So let's look back. Not everything that begins to exist has a cause, as virtual particles are a thing. And the universe had a first moment, as we like things to be properly worded. Not exactly very firm grounding for the conclusion. But you know what? I don't even think the conclusion is false. The universe probably had a cause. So what?
And since the universe can't cause itself...
Whoa, hold the fuck up. Citation fucking needed. The universe can't cause itself? What makes you think it can't? A carbon-14 atom can cause itself to radioactively decay as it's unstable. The universe came from a zero-dimensional singularity containing all energy of the universe. I'm no physicist, but I can't say that sounds particularly stable to me. That sounds ordered to a degree that thermodynamics won't allow to exist. It also means that the position and momentum of all energy was exact, as there was only one location for those to be located at. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle states that this isn't allowed and thus things must change. The scientific laws we currently have force the universe to change from its initial singularity and force it to create the universe. I can describe how scientific laws force the universe to create itself. I'm going to need citation for the seemingly blind assertion that the universe can't create itself, for it looks like the universe couldn't do anything but create itself.
Its cause must be beyond the space-time universe.
The cause must be beyond the space-time universe. So it doesn't exist anywhere nor at any time. Pretty sure that's a pretty good definition of something that doesn't exist.
It must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, uncaused, and unimaginably powerful.
Spaceless, so it's nowhere. Timeless, so there is no time at which it exists. Immaterial, so it isn't made out of anything. Uncaused, so there's no reason it exists. Powerful. If this is powerful on a physics level, that relates to its ability to do work. But since you've just told us that it doesn't have a space where it can do work, no time at which it can do work, nor a material to do work with, I'm going to say that no. It's not powerful, for it, by your own definition, can't have power.
Much like God.
Something that doesn't exist at any point at any time. Sure, I can accept that that is like God. But I don't think that's quite what you meant to say.
The cosmological argument shows that, in fact, it is quite reasonable to believe that God does exist.
As I've shown, it really doesn't. It's built on imprecise and partially false premises, making the conclusion not follow. To jump from the conclusion to God is a complete non sequitur. And the definition of God given here seems to define God as not existing. Of course, however, it is easy to fall for this. The imprecision of language may be obvious to me, but I'm a pedantic asshole. Most people wouldn't argue over what it means for something to exist. We don't see things begin to exist. And the sciences that observe things starting to exist are a fucking nightmare to look into for the layperson. It seems logical for something to be unable to change or cause itself to change, as any change we see in daily life always seems to have an actor behind it. And timeless, spaceless, and immaterial is repeated so often that we don't think about how nonsensical those properties really are. But remember that when dealing with science, weird situations, and really just any important questions, always be clear in your wording. It helps communicate ideas with others, but it also helps you understand your ideas and your feeling. Question what you think is normal. What may appear normal to you can be ridiculous to others. Or everyone may agree on something, but that something may still be false. Don't assume someone is behind everything. Sometimes things just happen. Not everything is connected. Don't just accept what others have told you. Question things. question everything. And no, I did not expect the end of this debunking video to turn into advice that fits both to understand reality and how to learn more about yourself. Because yes, that's what these lessons partially relate to. Be clear in your wording is how I got to realize I wasn't happy at times, as I put more effort into properly wording what I thought were temporary frustrations. Question normality is how I realized I got depressed in the winter every year. Avoid extreme pattern seeking is how I can sometimes just accept things how they are without looking deeper into it. Quite useful for a raging paranoid like myself. And don't just accept what others say is how I came to accept many parts of me as okay. Not as me being someone who can't just act like they're supposed to. Yeah, that came right the fuck out of nowhere. But it wouldn't be a modern Phoenix video if it wasn't surprise feelings. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned why the kalam doesn't work, and I really hope this helps someone in their ability to learn about reality or themselves. Writing this script took me only 2 hours. Fuck. This has been Phoenix, saying farewell.